Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Haze and today I will show you a very simple method on how to color your portrait in Procreate using my watercolor brushes.
This is the sketch that we'll be painting today, but before we begin, we need to create our color palette first. So let's drag the color picker here and we will pick 3 colors from yellow to red. You can also pick pinks, but do not pick anything near to green or blue. So I'm gonna pick a red first, and I want my red to be very vibrant but not the most vibrant. Then after that I will pick an orange, so the orange will be slightly more dull, but you can have it more vibrant as well, and you can have it lighter or darker. And after that you can pick your yellows can be dull as well. So your strongest color should be your red.
So here my red is a bit orangey, but if you like you can use pure red or pink. So if you are using pink, you would actually choose orange, red and pink, or if you use pure red then you can choose like yellow, orange and red. So it depends on how you choose, but make sure that your colors are all side by side.
Okay, now after that you're gonna pick your black. For black you can pick from anywhere within the color wheel. I'm picking it a slightly more green. So once you have your black, just paint it down. And then for your white, you can pick your white from any of your 4 swatches. So for example, for mine, I'm picking it from my yellow and I'm using this wheel to pick my white. So now we're going to create a color palette. First, we're going to use the black and white that we have from our swatches, and we're going to fade it using a brush that can do low opacity. Then once we fade it out, we can then pick the colors one by one and create like a grayscale almost. So let's just do this for the black and white first. Now let's take the 3 colors that we have and paint them in a triangle shape. After that, fade the colors in between and then get your swatches by picking out the colors and painting again. Once you are done, you should have something that looks like this, and then after that just use the eraser to clean the borders a bit so that it looks more like a triangle. After that, copy and paste the triangle so that you have 3 of them. So in the first triangle, paint the white in the center of the triangle. In the second one, paint black. And in the last one, paint the value that you think your skin tone is going to be. So if your skin tone is going to be very light, so paint a light gray. But if it's going to be darker, then paint a darker gray. Now fade each of the colors towards the center of the triangle and pick the colors out so that you have a palette for each triangle itself. You can create as many swatches as you like, but at the end of it you should have something like this. One last thing to do is to rearrange all your palettes nicely so that it'll fit nicely, and label all of them for black and white and red, orange and yellow so that you don't get confused, because now my green is my black. And now we're finally ready to paint, so resize your palette and fit it to the edge of your painting so that you can pick colors from it anytime. This is my layer setup, so I have my watercolor paper here and my outline in one layer. So we're going to paint below the outline layer for now. And make sure that your watercolor paper layer is set to multiply if you're doing watercolors.
You can download my Procreate watercolor brush pack from my website hazelong.com if you need them.
The first brush that I will be using is called the Bleeding Wash brush. Zoom into the triangle with the gray in the center, and you know that the center is made of gray. And now we can pick our base skin tone. Our base skin tone can be picked from any of these grayer versions here, but I'm gonna pick this color itself for my base skin tone. Using this base color, we're going to paint the first layer, so just paint the entire background or paint a shape. Here I'm painting a shape because I want my portrait to be made of drips. Now turn the alpha lock mode on for your layer and then pick the color of your hair from your palette. So if the color of your hair is pink in your palette, pick the pink equivalent. Using this color, I'm just going to color the hair areas and I'm going to smudge out any edges that I don't like. But if I want the hard edges to be there, I won't smudge it out. Now I'm going to pick a stronger orange or red. It doesn't matter if it's darker or lighter as long as the color is stronger. And I'm going to overlay on top of the existing splotches here. This will be our base layer and it is now done. Now I have a new layer on top of the base layer and we're going to continue painting on this layer itself. From this layer onwards, we're going to be using mostly the blending wash brush, so make sure this is loaded in your painting tool. So from here, I'm going to pick the same skin base tone color and paint the face using this brush. This brush is a very special brush because when you press hard, it will paint, and when you press softer, it will start to blend. So use this to your advantage and paint your face in the shadows area. So just use this color and do a general shadow pass all over your face. Because this brush is not easy to control, sometimes you might end up with streaky marks like mine, so just use the smudge tool and smudge them out to smooth it. So now we're going to go back to our skin tone palette and we're going to pick the darker, more vibrant red version. So this for me is going to be right here. We're gonna paint the red areas and also the shadow areas that appear red to our eyes. So once you have painted these red areas, the skin tone will immediately look almost like half done, and we will only just need to continue building the layers for the shadows. Now go ahead and pick the selection tool and select just the face area in order to continue painting without disturbing the hair. Remember to tap the save and load button and then save this selection so that you can get back to this selection at any time. Then continue to use this red to blend shadows all over your face. So basically what you're doing is putting in the reds for the face. So any areas that has reds, whether it's in the shadows or the highlight section, or if the lips appear to be red, you're going to be painting red over these areas. When you are done, go back to your layers, pick the base layer, and then now you're going to select grays to paint for your eyes first. So if your eyes are darker one side, so make sure to paint a darker gray for that side. So now we're going to go back to the previous layer and we're going to pick an orangey skin tone. It needs to be darker, more vibrant, like an orangey brown in relative to our skin tone. So I'm going to pick this one and test it out. This one seems a bit too vibrant, so I'm going to pick it out again. And this one seems a bit too yellowish. I want it even more brown, so I'm going to go darker. Let's go to the darker palette, and now I'm going to pick a shade of brown here and test it out. So it looks like this one works. So I'm going to use this color to shade my entire portrait one more time.
If you would like to learn more about color theory, you can always watch my color theory series.
So now you're going to do this in every area that appears to be orangey or brown. Once you're done, your skin will finally look like skin tone, and don't forget that you can always use a smudge tool to smoothen out the surface of the skin. And now we're going to pick the vibrant red, which is the pure red, and paint the red areas in our face one more time. Be careful to use a light touch so that you don't accidentally deposit a lot of paint onto the face. Similarly, we're going to pick a darker version of the brown and paint the shadow areas for our face. This will be closer to the green, which is actually our neutral gray, and it will neutralize our skin tone a bit. Also, please be reminded that this is actually our first shadow pass for the face. Now I'm going to lower the opacity of the outline layer because hopefully I can remove the outline at the end of the painting. And now I'm going to create a new layer above the color layer. And I'm going to choose the well-behaved liner this time. So now I'm just going to lay in some grays for the eyes. Then I'm going to pick a rich dark brown to work on the shadows. So for this, just paint the shape that you want, and then after that use the smudge tool to smudge the edges out. Let me show you that one more time. So just paint the shape that you want, and then after that use the smudge tool to smudge it out. So just gradually build your face using shades of oranges and reds until they reach the intensity that you want. And you can also start to use darker and darker colors at this point. So your goal this time is actually to be able to remove the outline as much as possible after this. You can also switch back and forth between the two brushes if you find that you need to do some blending. Once you have felt that you can't develop the shadows anymore, go to the outline layer and start erasing some of the lines away. When you are done, go back to the previous layer and touch up on the areas that you have erased just now for the outline. So make these areas more detailed and sharper. Now go back to your layers and create a new layer for coloring. And now we're going to pick the bleeding wash brush again. In this layer, we're just going to work on making even more watercolor splotches that are darker and more vibrant. We can just quickly lay down the colors and then use the smudge tool to smudge away the edges that we don't want. You can also start to paint in some drips. As for the colors, you can use any color you like as long as the value that you use are pretty close to the ones in your reference. So for example, I'm matching the colors in the photo by putting in oranges and reds, and now I'm putting in blacks because in the same area in the photo, these areas are black. Going into my eraser tool, I'm going to pick the bleeding wash brush and load it in, and we're going to erase away a little bit of holes into our splotches. Back to the eraser tool, I'm going to load in the splatter brush, and now we're going to erase away some splatter within the splotches. And finally, we're going to load the bleeding liner into our paint tool, and we're going to use this to detail our drips. So we're going to outline the drips, and this will add realism to our watercolor painting. After this step, we can go to our outline layer and erase away even more lines. It's up to you if you want to put in even more splatters using the paintbrush.
Okay, now we're gonna start detailing finally. So usually I would actually skimp over these parts and just increase the speed of my painting. But today I'm going to elaborate in detail my techniques, so I hope you guys would enjoy. But if you would like to skip, then just fast forward right to the end.
So create a new layer above everything else, and we will use the well-behaved liner for our detailing. But usually I will switch back and forth between the brushes that I need for this step. During detailing, usually we would want to deepen the shadows or the outlines itself. So other than deepening the shadows, we want to also add detail to the shadow areas. One very important aspect of doing detailing is to introduce texture. So the texture can be wrinkles, folds, pores, or anything out of the ordinary that would give character and personality to our portrait or emotion especially. So right now I'm just basically sketching in the wrinkles for the lips, and then after that I will just blur it out. As we deepen the shadow areas and also the outlines itself, we also want to take the opportunity to see if any of the drawings or the outlines are wrong, and if it is wrong, we would have to correct it at this stage. For the highlights, we can pick colors from the highlight color palette, and then we can use this to introduce highlights into our portrait. This is just the first stage in the highlight, so we shouldn't use the lightest color yet. For the eyes, it's safe to assume that the top half is shrouded in shadow, so we should immediately establish this first as we are painting. As we work on deepening the shadows for the eyes, we should also start to observe the features of the eye. Like for example, this one, the tear ducts is a lot longer, and it's not actually tear ducts, it's actually the makeup painted on to give the illusion that the eye is a lot bigger than it is. So when we are painting, we should know that the eye actually ends a lot further away from the nose. Sometimes after detailing, we would realize that the blending is not enough, or maybe the position is wrong or not dark enough. So at this point, we can go back to the blending wash brush and add even more shading to the face. There's nothing wrong going back and forth like this or going into detours. We should learn to enjoy the journey and the process itself. Recently, I created a marker brush pack, and I have this cross-hatching brush. So if you have a cross-hatching brush, you can use it to shade your face in areas that you feel that would benefit from more shadows. If you don't have this brush, you can also just sketch the line one by one, and I like to put this layer in multiply mode if I really want it dark, and then I can use the eraser to erase away some of the lines so that I can control how much it shows. Now I just randomly create another layer so I can put in cross-hatching highlights. The reason why I don't elaborate much during detailing is because this is like a very personal creative decision, and I don't really want to influence any of you guys with these kind of subjective decisions of mine. For the highlights, use the sketch brush and create a new layer. Sketch them in lines and do the entire face. You can use your brightest white for this layer, but make sure to be moderate and don't use too white if in the photo it is not that bright. The reason why I'm using lines to do the highlights is so that I can match the cross-hatching. So if the way that you depict your shadows is in a different manner, you should reflect the same in your highlights to match them so that they can have the same look at the end of it. And the reason why I'm using cross-hatching is because I wanted this to be like a watercolor painting, so the shadows and the highlights is usually put in using color pencil at the end of it, so this is something that can reflect the traditional medium. As you are doing your detailing, usually you will find that the more sketching skills that you have as an artist, the easier it is for you to detail anything, because this all comes from drawing skills, how you do shadows, how you sketch your highlights, and how you sketch your features, how you group values together. So this is all practiced during your sketching sessions. So if you want to improve as an artist, you should always sketch very often. Because when you think about it, when you are painting, you are using your sketching skills. When you're smudging, you're also using your sketching skills. And when you're erasing, you are also using your sketching skills. So you should always practice sketching very often. So the cross-hatching actually adds visual interest, so that when people linger onto my painting, they will start to see tiny details like this that can draw their attention.
Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. Color Theory Part 2 is coming up next very soon, and I would like to know if you guys are looking forward to the marker brush pack or another brand new release of the portrait brush pack. So let me know in the comments below. See you next time. Remember to comment, like and subscribe. Bye!